Looks like we are live. Welcome to the InnerStrength Empowerment Hour. This is our 30th episode, so that's really exciting. I'm Lori DePietro stand-in, and these are my amazing success coaches from my program, The Plant Power Revolution, Joanne and LT. So thank you guys for joining me today. And this is a really fun and important series that we're going to be doing on the 4 agreements. So if you have not read the book, oh, we lost Joanne. If you have not read the book, it is super short and it's definitely worth the read. It's basically a collection of 4 essays. And these are just tenets to live your life by. They're pretty universal, but they're impactful when you read them. So I would definitely suggest that. But whether or not you have read the book today, you can definitely, get a lot out of this conversation, whether you've been, reading the book or not. So the 4 agreements are: be impeccable with your word. Don't take things personally. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best. And so we're going to take those a week at a time. And this week, obviously, we're taking the first one, which is being impeccable with your word. So how, I think there's a lot of people who say that they keep this book on hand and they've read it at different times in their lives because it is a 25-year-old book. It means something different every time they read it. It brings up something new. So how do both of you interpret this first agreement about being impeccable with your word? When you first read it, what was your takeaway?
Well, I think I never really understood what the power of my word was. And this is they give such a great description of what your word actually means. So I feel like it's been like one of those aha moments from like the first chapter was like, wow, that's actually what my word means. And before that, I guess, you try to be impeccable with your word, but I don't think we really understand what that means.
No, we really don't. What about you, LT?
Yeah, I took it to mean is it's an honesty, it's an integrity. I've always tried to be that with other people. And because I'm a responsible person, but I failed miserably doing it to myself because I talked to myself horribly. So my takeaway from that is to be impeccable with my word, with myself, because, words can build you up and they can tear you down. And I tore myself down like nobody's business in my past life. And I've just made the switch on that.
Yeah, we don't realize how powerful our words are and how we are kneecapping ourselves all the time with our language. So when we say things like, I'm just trying to avoid eating that cake, like I'm just trying to, like you are making it, you are already going to do it. Or, the way that you're talking to, people about, well, I just need to get more me time, but you're not making that happen. You're just you're not putting anything valuable out into the universe about actually what you want.
Yes. My standard was I'm never going to be able to get this right. And I used words like never and always. And I put myself in a box, and I've trumped all of that because I've turned it around with the power of my word.
Right. Yeah. We don't realize that we're speaking. It's basically a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that can be to your detriment, or it can lead to your success depending on how you are using your word, and yes, so importantly, and most importantly with yourself, but also in the way that you're communicating to people around you, because you are teaching people how to treat you based on your word. And so that's what we want to dig into today. How were you speaking to yourself about your life before? And how was that impacting your ability to have the success that you wanted in whatever areas of your life?
I think like LT, I was speaking to myself in all the wrong ways. And I was actually in sort of a conflict based on what I wanted compared to what I was telling myself. And I was doing the same thing with a lot of the negative words. I was saying, and I mean, I would say this out loud multiple times over my life. This isn't what I signed up for. Like, that's what I kept saying. Like, and I couldn't get it right. Like, I couldn't get it right with, I'm doing all the things, I'm trying all the things, I'm reading all the things. And this still isn't what I signed up for, because my language to myself and my language to the people around me was not manifesting like positive things. It was self-fulfilling. This isn't what I signed up for. So guess what? It's just going to continue to be not what I signed up for. And I wasn't ever really putting out there, well, what did I sign up for? You know, like what were my ideas of what I wanted my life to look like? And that's not what I was putting out there. I was just putting out all the, well, this wasn't it. So, you know, it was conflicting language.
I think with women, most of the women that I talk to, and I've mentioned this before, I'll ask them to tell me some things about themselves, and they will always go to, well, I have 2 kids, I'm married. They always go to, what are you providing for somebody else? Well, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I volunteer at my church, you know, and I'm like, but no, tell me some things about you. And they actually can't. They can't, because it's been so long since they've really invested in themselves that they don't know themselves anymore. So it makes perfect sense what you're saying, because when you don't know yourself anymore, you've lost sight of that, then it's really hard to put out into the universe, here's what I want, because you just know that you're not happy, but it's, you don't have a vision for who you are and what you want. What are your thoughts on that, LT?
That's exactly what I did. My vision was not who I wanted. My vision was always flip-flopping. I was the definition of a flip-flopper, yo-yoer. And I mean, you look that up in the dictionary, you're going to see my picture, because I just couldn't stick with anything. And that's what I told myself. You can't do it. You know, you can't get it right. You're never going to get it right. You can't. And then that translated into, you're stupid, you're dumb. Why does anybody want to be around you? And then that made me feel like less than a mother, less than a wife, less than a friend. And I allowed that to happen. And there's the isolation coming in, because then you're questioning your every move because you're not good enough. You're looking to other people to bring your happiness. And heaven forbid if they do something wrong, because it's going to blow up, because you're depending on them to keep you stable and balanced, because you're like this yo-yo city over here. And so, you know, I lived like that for a long, long time. And my bottom line with this was I was severely addicted to food and was in denial about it. But when I got honest with that, I had done so much reading and so much research and gone to so many programs and really was open to a lot of suggestions, but just could not make the connection. But when I made that connection that it was food addiction and I got rid of that, all of that stuff I read and studied, it came back, and then it was on. I mean, it was on. And that's why this has been easy to me. It's because I have suffered with it for so long. And all I had to do was get honest about what my problem was. And when I got really honest, that's when I got the results that I've always wanted. I've always wanted it. Finally got it.
So how have each of you changed your inner dialogue? And what is that looking like now in your life?
Well, I think for me, understanding where the dialogue was coming from was a big deal. And understanding where other people's dialogue was coming from in my interaction with the people around me, and realizing that it wasn't just me not being able to get it right. It was, and that kind of goes, I know, into the other agreements that we're going to talk about, but, you know, the taking things personally and the making assumptions and all of that. And when I read this first chapter with the first agreement, and I finally understood that our words that we put out to other people, you know, they come back to us, and the words that other people put out to me, they're coming from their own mess that they have. And when you learn the difference of how to change your wording to yourself. And it's not like, I think there was a quote in the book about, well, let me look it up real quick. I have it on page 28.
For those of you following along, this is on page 28.
Well, this was a big deal to me because I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It says every human mind is fertile, but only for those kinds of seeds it is prepared for.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my how it's changed things is my mind before was prepared in a place of fear. I was always prepared for rejection. I was always prepared for letdown. I was always prepared for the negative because that's the language I was using. So when you prepare yourself in a different way, different things come to you, so that's, I think, been the biggest aha thing that's happened here is I've been preparing myself differently now. So I understand where my words are coming from so that I can better understand where other people's words are coming from.
Yeah, you're changing your soil.
Mm-hmm.
That's the soil that you're growing in can be either toxic and you're not flourishing,
Mm-hmm.
or it can be, nutrient filled and you begin to flourish from that. And it does start with what we're saying in here.
Yep.
And how we project out, because our energy does affect everyone around us, negatively or positively.
Yes.
We talk a lot about in the group, and I talk about this with my kids and everybody, like, what energy are you bringing in?
Yep.
You're responsible for your own energy, and your energy affects the people around you, not just you. And so you have to take responsibility for that. But that starts with that. It starts with that soil.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what I did. I mean, ditto to exactly what she said. And I have started talking more positively to myself, but not just an I can't do it, but it's an I can do it. And I really am asking myself, is that really true? Because I used to tell myself things and would believe it to be true, but it really was not true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not always not going to be this way. I'm never not going to that's not true. So now I'm really careful about saying things like that. And I really build myself up. I'm encouraging to myself. I not only like myself once again, but I love myself. And that's really evident in the way that I come across with my family and my other relationships, because they can see it. Because like you say, it is a positive energy. You're attracting a different vibe. It really is. Somebody posted this in our group recently. It was from a psychologist. And I wrote this down because this really resonated with me too. And it says, when you're not used to being confident, confidence can feel like arrogance. And when you're not used to being passive, or when you're used to being passive, assertiveness can feel like aggression. And when you're not used to getting your needs met, prioritizing yourself feels selfish. It may feel that way, but your comfort zone is not a good benchmark. That's not a good benchmark. So see, I have debunked all of this. So I am confident, and I'm not, and it's not arrogant. I am assertive, but it's not aggressive. I am prioritizing my needs, and it is certainly not selfish. It's benefiting everybody around me, including myself.
Right. You have to change your own mind first. And I think that's where, especially as women, we screw up, because we want everybody else to change their minds about us before we change our minds about ourselves.
Right.
And that's just never going to happen. It's not going to happen. It has to start with your inner dialogue, and that filters out to the people around you. We talk a lot in our group about mantras and manifesting, and I want to give a little bit of a definition for that, because I think it's misunderstood. So all manifesting is focusing on your outcome. Instead of focusing on the negative of all the things you don't want, you focus on what you do want. And it is about gratitude. It is about positivity and about looking forward to that goal and really believing that is possible for you. And it is just, all it is about tapping into your own potential. Is just the only thing that you have to believe is that in every human, there is endless potential. You don't even have to necessarily believe it about yourself to start. You just have to believe that possibility is out there for all of us.
Yep.
And so when when you come up with a mantra, we had someone in our group say, well, I can't be something that I'm not. So it feels like when you're saying a mantra that's what you're doing. So like if I said, when I was heavy and overweight, my mantra is I am strong and healthy and my body is healing itself.
Mhm.
And so anybody who looked at me might have been like, nah, I don't know about that, if I would have said that. But the fact that I was stepping into that potential. And that's what a mantra is. I'm just tapping into the potential I knew I had to be that person. And then I became that person. So that is how your language affects your life, because you are either manifesting gloom and doom by saying never, always, all of the things that we do. I'm never going to have a good marriage. I'm never going to find someone that really appreciates me. I am never going to get to my goal weight. I am always going to be sick. I'm always going to be tired. My kids are never going to appreciate me. Like just the things that we do. And what you're doing is creating that environment. Like Joanne said, you're basically saying, yeah, this is how it is forever. So, and so how do you feel like, I know I'm kind of asking the same question in a different way, but can you speak a little bit about your experience, each of you, with manifesting and with mantras and how you're using that and how it's been a positive impact for you?
Yeah, I've been doing the same thing, that this kind of the same mantra that you used is I am a healthy person. And when I started this program, I was the complete opposite of a healthy person, head to toe, mind, body, and spirit. And it was uncomfortable in the beginning. Looking in the mirror, I would say to myself, I am a healthy person. I do what healthy people do. I do what a healthy person does. I am healing. And at first that was difficult because, I didn't feel like that. I didn't at all. But, a few weeks in, then I started going, yeah, but you're making those healthy choices, So when I would say it, and I would look in the mirror when I did it, I would say it in the mirror multiple times a day. And the more I said it and the more my actions followed that, the more I could believe it. And the more, it was kind of like a cycle, like it just manifests itself. The more you say it, the more it becomes true, the more you want it to become true. And then the more the universe brings it back to you and makes it true. So, my latest one that I say in the mirror now is I have a flat stomach. I have a flat stomach. So I'm manifesting that and I hope it's coming true.
Yeah. Well, if you're somebody that is, that might sound crazy to some people who are listening to this, but the fact is that a lot of bloat and things like that comes from stress. It comes from anxiety, which causes poor digestion. So when you are manifesting a healthy body, then that would be a natural result of not just weight loss, but actually improving your digestion through improving your state of mind, because those are, your anxiety is directly tied to your digestive issues. So what are your thoughts on this, LT?
Yeah. Well, when you first start, it does sound a little hokey, and it doesn't quite sound right. But the more you do it, and that's what it is, it's a practice, it's a habit. The more you say it, it becomes who you are. And I've had two from the very beginning that I've shared. And my first one is that I am becoming the person that I've always wanted to be. And my other one is that my future success is hidden in my daily routine. And what has happened is, but me saying that a million times, because it's probably been about 2 million by now, what happens is that has become who I am. And that has aligned to the choices that I am making. Because a person who is always becoming the person they've wanted to be is not camping out at the Dairy Queen. Right. A person who is, her future success is hidden in her daily routine, isn't going face first in a box of Little Debbie's. I mean, it's just not happening. Right. And so that's why I have aligned to that. That has become who I am. And my one last week that I loved, and this is what I'm saying to myself a lot now, I am releasing old habits and I am blazing new trails. I love the word blazing. That means you are going out with action, going out with force. And that's why at the end of it, I put boom. Yeah. Boom. I mean, it's happening. Come on.
And I said to everybody that should be at the end of all of our mantras.
It should. I mean, do
Yeah.
it like this. Boom. Get
That's
it.
right.
Go get it. Go get what you want.
Right.
I mean, really, it's all you need is a little bit of time. We're telling you how to do it, how to tweak it, and you just get a little bit of time. And I'm telling you, the brass ring is right there for your taking. It really is.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. It's really about, we talk about vibrating on the same level as the energy that you want. And so things like gratitude, happiness, curiosity, a love, all of these things are high vibrating emotions, and lower vibrating emotions are, resentment and envy and bitterness and anger and
Yes.
hate and all these things. So, it might sound like when I say energy vibrations, it might
Right.
sound like, ooh, but it really is very practical. So that the example I always use is like, let's just say I'm in a horrible mood and I'm just, full of bitterness and resentment today because of, an argument I had with somebody or something. So I go to the grocery store and, something happens and I end up, getting really angry at the cashier and I spew all over her. The energy that's going to come back to me is anger from her and from the people around me. That's just so if I'm on the freeway and I'm, driving, like I'm all mad, I'm going to cut people off and then, they're going to flip me off. And so I'm bringing back the same energy that I'm putting out there. This isn't that weird to think about it. We all know this. And so, but believe it or not, that does start with how you speak to yourself. And our inner dialogue can be so toxic. And sometimes you won't even notice that it's happening. So I think the other part of this that I talk to women a lot, I know you guys do too, is, people come into, or when they first start talking to me about changing their lifestyle, there's a lot of anxiety or pushback about the fact that they have kids, they have a spouse, these people may not be on board with wanting to be healthier, and they just feel overwhelmed. Like, I can't do this unless everybody does it.
Right.
Every once in a while, I have someone come to me who says, my whole family wants to do this, but that's rare. Every once in a while, a little more often, someone will come to me and say, my husband's going to do this with me, or my partner, whatever. Again, not that often. So you can totally do it without that, but it doesn't feel that way. And there's specific reasons for that. So in what ways is this lifestyle, do you think, for you guys, both in your own experience and with the women that you're working with, made more complicated by a person's spouse, by their kids, by their family of origin, who they may still be in contact with? What kinds of things do you guys see happening there?
Well, I think that it goes back to the communication. It goes back to how when you want to get yourself well and you want to get yourself on the right path, if you don't communicate that properly to the people around you, and you might say, we're all going to do this, we're all going to get on board. And then what you're actually doing is you're bringing all of that, being overwhelmed by that idea, you're bringing that back to you. And then that seems overwhelming, because I've had a few women who right off the bat are like, well, the kids don't want to, the kids love their chicken nuggets, or the kids love their this, and we have to do this. And you don't have to. You can just do it for yourself. And the message you put out to your family is, I'm getting healthy, I'm doing this for us. And be patient with yourself and be patient with your family. And that comes across in your language too. So if you're super demanding, like I used to be in my former life, it was very stressful. It ebbs and flows, like we were talking about yesterday, with what I expect out of my family compared to what they actually do. And I can't have the expectations. I just have to have the language right in my own mind. And then I can put that out there. And if they want to get on board, they can get on board. And I have, when I really hone that in and I just focus on myself, it comes out from a better place. As we've all been talking about, it comes out from a place of being authentic rather than I need to control everything around me.
Right.
And so what I've noticed is what I hear back from my teenagers, because y'all know I got a couple of teenagers. I don't necessarily hear the things coming back to me that I've said when I'm uptight or when I'm being demanding or when I'm being like, we have to do this. What I hear coming back to me is things like, are you bringing good energy in the room? I've heard that come out of their mouths. I've heard that say, well, if you're not going to have good energy, let's not do this. You know, like they are picking up on my energy when I'm saying these words. And I think that's the key to making your whole environment the way you actually envision it, is just getting it right with yourself and not demanding that everybody get on board on the same, you know, with the same ticket.
And that's the difference between boundaries and trying to control people. Those are two totally separate things. We cannot control what people do. And unless your children are very small, you aren't going to be able to control what they do. Right. What you can do is set boundaries and consequences. That's what you can do. And it's the same thing with everyone else in your life. You can't control them either. You can't control what your boss does, what your friends do, how people react to you, anything else. What you can do is say, I value myself.
Yes.
Here's what I am willing to, you know, here's where my boundary is in terms of, you know, your behavior. And if you cross that, this is the consequence. And there's not, I think where women really, the problem here is they think it's a negotiation process. And it's not. You just say, here's the boundary. And if you cross it, here's the consequence. And that's it. That's being impeccable with your word. When we start waffling around and negotiating and begging and pleading and threatening and all the things that we do to get what we want, that's not being impeccable with your word. That's waffling back and forth, and that's causing anxiety within yourself.
Yes.
Because you're never going to be able to control people by manipulating them. I mean, you might be able to for a time, but that's only going to come back to haunt you.
And that doesn't feel good.
No, it does.
It causes so much anxiety when you know that there's something like at stake. Like, I have to win this. I have to get them to come to my side. You don't have to.
Right. And I mean, I think it's something as simple as, like, with my son, you know, I'm always like, okay, well, you need to eat these vegetables. And if you don't eat them, that's fine. But here's, you know, you can stay out of the pantry for the rest of the night, because you're not going to not eat the vegetables and then go snack all night. That's what he likes to do. Or it can just be like, I make this dinner. This dinner is for everyone. If you don't like it, go grab an Amy's meal out of the freezer and have that. But this isn't a restaurant. I'm not gonna, this is not an order up whatever you would like, and I'm gonna stand up in the kitchen cooking it. So these are boundaries that you can make that protect your own energy. And that actually benefits everyone. It benefits you on your journey. And also it means you're putting good energy out there no matter what happens. You're consistent. And that makes you feel good about yourself.
Yeah, that's the energy I've put out too. And nobody sabotages me or tries to get me to do something different, because they know it's not going to happen, because I'm so resolute in what I do. Now, they're not committed like I am, but they are being influenced, and they're making some better choices, and they really want me to see the better choices. I get lots of texts about, I had this, or I ate this, or they're at the store, what do you think about this one? And so I know little seeds are being planted, but you know, I'm not going to preach or say what if they're going to order, because they're at such an age. I mean, they're both in college. So, I mean, you know, they're going to do what they're going to do. But I will say that my daughter and I have had several heart-to-heart talks lately. She's going to college as a freshman in the fall, because I wanted her to know that college was when I really started my downfall with food, and when I started having my weight problems. And I want her to be very, very aware of what's going on and how easy it is to get in those traps with college life and food and late nights and DoorDash and everything that they do. And so she's really listening to me on that. And I'm trying to tell her that it's not just about vanity and how you look and be able to fit in those certain genes, but that we have a family of heart disease, and that cholesterol plays into that, and blood pressure plays into that. And, you know, depression and that type thing. So that's why I'm really trying to get across. And I think I'm being heard on that end. But like I say, I am 100% committed, and they're some of the time, but they're
Right.
listening.
And that's okay, because
Mhm.
you can't control them. And that's,
Right.
a big part of the anxiety and discontent that we cause for ourselves, is by not accepting things the way that they are,
Yeah.
and trying to force things to be a certain way. All we
Mhm.
can control is our own actions.
That's
And our
right.
own, but there's empowerment in that.
There
That's
is.
that's
And
where you find your power.
yes, and I am the primary person buying the food and bringing it in the house. And I can tell you, Mama's not bringing it home. And you're not going to talk me into it. You text me and tell you to pick you up some Oreos, because I'm not going to do it.
Right.
If you want to take your own money in your own car and go get the Oreos, that's another story. But I'm not putting it in my basket, and they know not to even try, because it's a non-negotiable, really. I
Right.
present good, healthy options. I have good, healthy dinners. If it's like you say, if you want to eat, if you don't, go get some.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah. I think, it's so weird how we had someone in the group yesterday mention that it was a tradition with one of her kids that when they go a certain place, that they eat a tub of icing together, and that she didn't want to do it because she's been doing so amazing on the program and has lost a lot of weight. But her daughter was like, but this is our tradition. And the thing is, we have to realize when we pass these traditions down, that we are passing ill health down to further generations. We are making our bloodline unhealthy when we do this. So we're not doing our kids any favors by making sure we always go through the drive-through after such and such, because that's our tradition. And that we always, whatever the things are, we do these things like it's some kind of sacred activity, when all we're doing is passing down bad habits. And it doesn't just lead to ill health, it leads to low self-confidence and, all sorts of other problems. So yeah, this is, we need to set these boundaries, and that it starts with being impeccable with our word. Do what say what you mean, and mean what you say. And when you say you're going to do something, do it. When you set a boundary, you have to follow up with it. You can't just, when someone crosses the boundary, you can't just be like, begging, complaining, whatever, threatening. You have to just say, okay, well, this was my boundary. Here's the consequence.
Right.
And that goes for everybody in your life. So do you think there was a way before this? And if there was, how do you think you were communicating it? Because this is a big problem with women, that we communicate that somehow our needs aren't as important as everybody else in the family. I know that I definitely did that. Do you feel like you were doing that? And if so, what did that look like?
I did that. Yeah, I did that by the book. I was so worried about getting it right. Like whatever that definition of right was.
For women,
I was
you mean
so worried about, what's that?
Like for women, like doing it all.
For women and just within my own circle, I think too, of people, around the other moms and around the other family members that had kids. Like I just wanted to get it right. So what that looked like to me, it wasn't even what was authentically what I wanted. It was just some weird vision of what I wanted. And it didn't actually fit my family or my needs to just keep trying to, push those kind of like things that I wanted it to look like, or things that I wanted it to be like. And so, once you realize that you're not being authentic in that, and once you realize you're just spinning your wheels, I think that's where you can understand and make changes in that.
Like it's not going to be perfect, and it's not going to be this beaver cleaver thing. It's just
right. So everybody's dressed perfectly. Everybody's hair is perfect. Everybody's getting straight A's. Everybody's, God forbid my kid do this, that, or the other thing. Like it doesn't have to be like
it's
that.
Even with pictures and stuff. I posted this funny meme. It was with a cheetah. So for those of you who are friends with me on Facebook, it's really funny because it's like it's this photographer, this wildlife photographer, and he's like showing the cheetah his camera, and it says, you know, it's like me showing my kids the pictures that I've taken of them, and it shows the picture, and the cheetah's like, and the cheetah's like, no, delete it. Yeah. Because that's the way, and it used to make me so crazy, because you want these beautiful family pictures, and you know, and it's like I'm just like, you know, my son, especially, you guys, so my son is 17, and he's just at that age where he's completely incorrigible most of the time. And so every picture we take, the whole family's like, look at Tucker in this picture. Oh my God, you know, and I'm just like, you know what? This is authentic. This is what Tucker does.
Right,
this is what we're going to remember in these pictures. I can't get him to smile like a normal person. He's going to be there going, you know, making faces at the camera. So let him deal with that 10 years from now. Let him, you know, explain that to his future wife or whatever. So, but yeah, it's like that we just have to let go of some stuff, and for our own sanity, you know.
Right.
But yeah, but when you do that, I think we give, first of all, it's a false importance, because how important is that? That's a bigger, what you're talking about is a bigger issue in our society about what should be important to women.
Right. Because
we are the primary caregivers. So I'm going to say something super controversial right now. Why are we the primary caregivers? There's two. There was a sperm coming in there. What, right? I don't just spontaneously, I'm not married. This is, you know, it's ridiculous that we take on all of this pressure. And so what happens is you have to be the perfect mom. And if you're working outside the home, you then have to do that perfectly. And you have to look perfect while you're doing it. You have to, you know, if you're not cooking and your husband does all the cooking, you know what you're going to get from other women in your life? Oh, well, it must be nice.
Yeah.
You know, oh, you're lucky. You got one of the good ones, you know? So it's like we set up this whole expectation that we are going to live a life where we can't manage our health because we have no time for ourselves.
That's exactly right. And that's what I did. I was the definition of being disappointed, because I tried to do everything for everybody. And I did have an opportunity to be a stay-at-home mom. And so I took on even more responsibility in that area with my volunteerism. And so what happens is you feel underappreciated, which then makes you turn bitter. And then you get snappy and mad. And that's what I did. And then, you know, it comes out that your whole intent of what you're trying to do is not even what you're trying to put out there. No, because then you resent doing it. And you resent being asked, and you resent being said that you're the stay-at-home mom. You've got plenty of time. Why don't you do it? You know, you get boxed in that category. And so that's ended up what happened. And my mother, you know, is the sweetest person in the world, but she is not somebody to complain to. So I had to figure out who I could complain to, because if I ever had 1 second of a complaint, this is how my mother acts. She would say, my gosh, Lori, you could be married to an alcoholic. You could have no money. You could be living in a trailer being abused right now. Your kids could be on free food stamps. And I'm like, you know what? You ain't the person to talk to when I need to say something. So I would call up with some of my other friends, and they'd be like, I know it, doesn't it stink? And I'm like, you know, so I have to say something like that. But, you know, that's where she came from. She was always a giver and giving back and selfless, and won Volunteer of the Year twice for the state of Georgia. So we're talking about somebody who is a giver to the core. So that's what I was modeled. And that's why I was always doing and doing and doing, and it wasn't enough. And I just wasn't getting anything back from that. I was actually getting a little bit mad. Whereas where she got her atta girls and her affirmation, because she was in a bad marriage with my dad, and that's where she got it. But I was in a good marriage, but I was the one making it worse, because I was the one being disappointed and having high expectations, when really I have changed everything completely, and I see things for what it is now. And it's just better than ever, because I see it. I've made the changes. Nothing around me has changed, but my perspective has changed. My attitude has changed. My temperament, my tone, my hormones, all of this has changed. And it's because I've changed my diet. That's the bottom line. This food has healed me.
It starts with that, for sure.
Yes,
And to go back to what you said about your mom, who was the sweetest and
she is. She really is.
but that's a generation
It is.
where that just wasn't in question, that you did everything. There just
And
wasn't.
how dare you complain? How dare you complain? Right.
In my house, which was very different, my mom's very different than your mom.
Yes.
We, I grew up in an abusive home, but the thing was always like, well, it still was, well, it could be worse. I wasn't allowed to complain because someone else always had it worse than us. Same thing.
Yeah.
We weren't impoverished.
Right.
We weren't, so there, was always like, what do you have to complain about?
Right.
Like, and so what it makes you do is not trust yourself. It makes you not trust your own feelings, because you're like, okay, well, if I feel like there's something wrong here, but I guess maybe there's nothing to complain about.
Yeah.
It makes you really confused.
It does.
You grow up not being able to trust yourself. So therefore you can't set boundaries, because every time you're like, well, I think, here's what I want. And somebody's like, no, you're not. Or I'm going to step over that boundary. You're like, well, okay. Or it's, you can't be firm with it. And so we have some comments here. Gina said, me too, you put everyone first and you get resentful, and it is totally a generational thing, high expectations. Tammy says, I told my husband he could have happy kids or a clean house. I could not do both. And we have pretty happy kids.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, I am not a good housekeeper. And I even resent that term. Like, good housekeeper? Like, what the, like, I just feel like why is that my job?
Right.
And so, we have a decently clean house, and John and I are both on the same page that if this house needs to be cleaner, then we're going to have to hire somebody, because this is as clean as it's getting with the two of us. But I made, the choice that I made when I married John, which is different than the choices I've made in the past, was that we are very equal in responsibilities. Yes. He very much takes on a lot of responsibility.
Shares the load. Yeah, he does.
So, but that again is a boundary thing. If I went into this relationship or any other relationship as I have in the past, not having that boundary that this is what I can be responsible for and still take care of myself. If I didn't do that, then I would find myself in the same position that I've always been in, which is that I'm just overloaded and running myself into the ground. So now that your messaging to to the people around you has changed, how do you think they're perceiving you in terms of you as a person? Because I think, especially, with our kids and spouses, you almost are a non-entity. Sometimes you're just the mom, and you are just, especially with our kids, you know what I mean? Like, it's when they're still at home. But are they seeing you now as an individual, as a person who has needs, as a woman who is fulfilling her needs? Like, how do you think that has changed from whatever they saw you as before?
I definitely think that. And I've actually heard that out of my kids. As much as, they drive me up the wall, I do feel like by checking back in with who I am and letting that come out authentically, I feel like, especially with daughters, that's so important, because I do not want them to grow up with the same background script playing in their head that I've grown up with, because I don't want them to be 45 years old and then going, this isn't what I signed up for. I want their whole lives to be what they signed up for every turn. Intentional and actually living their life, instead of letting their life live them and then being resentful about it. And I feel like, when they were younger and I was still in that loop of just trying to get it right, and whatever right was, I feel like I could sense so much anxiety in them because they were like, oh, we want to please mom, but you know, what does it even mean to please mom? Because I was so flip-floppy, like LT said, like, who knew at any given moment, do I want them to clean their room or do I want them to go study so they can get perfect grades? Like, I was not chilled out enough to where they knew what they should expect of themselves. And now I'm actually hearing it coming from them in their own confidence. I can see it changing over the last couple of years, how confident they are with themselves, how confident they are in their conversations with their friends, being able to stand up for things that they believe in. And, you know, the last 2 years, my God, the whole world has just flip-flopped and gone on its, you know, like, what is even happening in the world? And there's a lot of things that as young people, they have opinions about. And being impeccable with your word is very important because I want them to understand what they're saying before they just put it out there, you know, to come back at them.
So important too. Let me just because of social media and everything,
yes,
because these kids are just
they
putting it all
are
out there, and it is scary to see.
Mm-hmm.
It is. And we over the last year with all the election stuff and the, you know, all the social injustice things that have been coming at us left and right, I want them to speak up for what they believe in, but I want them to understand what they believe in. And I want them to have that be true to them instead of just regurgitating crap that they don't even know what it is. And in fact, yesterday, my sister got involved in this because she saw something that my daughter posted on Instagram. I don't even know how to use Instagram, so I hadn't seen it yet. And I was like, oh, here we go again.
Okay, well, wait. This explains you're on Instagram. So this explains why when I send you things on Instagram, you don't respond. So
I have no idea how it works. I have zero idea how it works.
Oh,
so yes, don't send me anything on Instagram.
Mystery solved.
It's a mystery. So, you know, she sent me this thing. She's like, hey, if Ella ever wants to get to know more about this topic, you know, I'm really passionate about that. So maybe I could talk to her. I was like, oh, geez, here we go again. What is she posting that she probably doesn't understand? And so, you know, I feel like they want to have a voice because they understand now how important having a voice is, because I'm showing them that having a voice is important. But it's tricky with teenagers because you have to still teach them, you know, the background of things before they just go out and spew more noise. But I feel like they're more confident in voicing what they feel instead of being scared to talk about anything.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a tricky topic. And, you know, we want them to be able to have conversations that are meaningful, like you said, and not just regurgitate things or inflame. Because we see that so much on social media, as people not really trying to contribute to a conversation, but just inflame the conversation.
Right.
So it's so important. And so when you are impeccable with your word, that's where your kids can really, whether they have the same opinions of you on things or not, they can learn to have that same type of communication skill. And that's just so, it's a life skill.
Yeah.
For sure. So what about you, Lori? Do you feel like your family views you differently?
Yes, I definitely do. I'm definitely more approachable in a lot of ways, with a calmer temperament. I'm more thoughtful. I think that I'm even more caring than I was, because I'm more caring to myself. And I think that translates into other, because I have a contentment about myself that money cannot buy. Because believe me, I shelled out some money to get it, and I finally got it. So I know what I'm saying when I say that. So there's a contentment, there's a positivity, there's a different way of looking at things, a different angle, which puts the spotlight on it a little bit different. And they notice that and they see that. And it's a happier, more joyful home. And I regret a lot of things that I've said and done, and snappiness and anger and short temper and that type thing. And just talking with my daughter just last week, we were talking about one issue in particular, and I said, you know what, you're you're prettier than I am, you're smarter than I am, you're more talented than I am. And she goes, no, I'm not. I was like, yes, you really are. And in lots of ways. When I was 18, you're much better. And I could just see, I thought she needs more of that. She has needed more of that for a long time. And it was like putting salve on a wound. And she said, do you really think I am? I said, Reagan, I think you could do anything you want. You have such potential in you. It is unlimited. And so we were talking about college and going off and just the opportunities and things she's going to have. And that's why I said, don't do what I did. I let food control me. And it took me down a path that led me in areas that I didn't want to be in. And I struggled for years and yo-yoed, and it made me depressed, and it made me angry, and it took away opportunities from me because I allowed it to take away opportunities from me. So I said, that's why I want you to go in with such good choices, and doing the right thing, and being engaged and active and happy. And I said, and all that's going to come back to you. So I think that she needs more of that. And I think that I speak for that for most girls that age, in that teenage age. They really can't hear it enough because they are inundated with social media and the pressures and being a student and all of that. And, you want your home to be a soft place to fall. And you want them to be to come to you when they have problems rather than wanting to hide and avoid. And I don't want to tell mom because she's just going to be harsh.
Right.
I want to be that mom.
And often our homes, I know the home that I grew up in was the worst place to go. That's the hardest place to fall.
Yes.
And so that definitely, this is really about what we're talking about is, in a way, generational curses, which are, ways that we pass down toxicity generation to generation, things that were passed down to us that we don't even think about necessarily, that we're passing down to our kids. Your personality is really just your collection of habits. That's, the things that you do. There's a great book by Joe Dispenza called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Because, you hear so many, and we've all said it, like, why am I this way? It's not that you are this way, it's that you do these things. You think these thoughts and then you do these things.
Right.
And you can actually completely change that those things are in your control if you have the right roadmap to do it. But when you don't, you are passing that same roadmap, the faulty roadmap, down to your kids as well. And so that's the great thing about this process, is in the process of healing yourself, you're healing. I saw a really great meme that was like, you're not just healing the generations that come after you, but you're healing the generations that came before you. I was like,
that's right.
So that meant a lot to me. So in closing, how is being impeccable with your word, how would you say that is directly leading to you being able to have more peace in your life, to be able, because I know for me, and I say this a lot to my clients, is that I set peace of mind as my benchmark for everything. If I can't have peace of mind, then I don't want to do it, and I don't want to be a part of it. That's because that's the most important thing. I don't want to be anxious and worried, and so how do you feel like being impeccable with your word is making you have that sense of peace?
Well, I'm just not listening to all of the false narrative in my head anymore. Now that I can recognize what that is, and I can be impeccable with what I fill my brain with, and I fill my day with, and I make myself busy with the things that are, again, making my soil more fertile to good things. I think that has really changed how I move forward in this journey, is that I just don't listen to that anymore because I know it's false. And in the book, he talks about it can either be fear-based, or it could be, your so-called heaven on earth if you create that for yourself. And for me, I'm with you. I want to be peaceful. I have that view of myself. Like I was thinking about who are the people in my life that I thought were impeccable with their word? And the two people that I came up as a child, you know, growing up, my second grade teacher, Miss B, she was always so authentic, and Mr. Rogers. And when I think about them and I think about what they both have in common, their whole body is just peaceful. Their whole body is just, you can see the process of how they think before they speak. And you can tell that that's the true authentic things that are actually playing in their head
You know
as well.
I think about with that is Maya Angelou.
Yes.
Maya Angelou, like, not that I've ever met her in person, but even on the TV, like, she just had this energy that would penetrate.
Yes.
And it was such a calm and positive and peaceful and very resolute.
Yes.
Like, you just know that that is someone that you're not going to be messing with. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like she has it together. She knows who she is.
Right.
Like, so that's somebody, yeah, there are people like that. And that's what we aspire, or, you know, I aspire definitely to be like.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think anymore about getting it right to what society thinks is right. I think about, how does it feel? And if I'm true to my word, and if I am impeccable with my word, and I put that out there, and I make the soil fertile for my family to learn the same thing, to be impeccable with their word, I feel like it's just got a different feeling to it than it used to have.
Yeah, and I definitely feel that too. I am just a learner to the core. I absorb myself in new information and learning and reading and wanting self-improvement. And so that's what I bring into my life. And that has changed some things that I used to read or watch or do, because I'm just not bringing in something that's going to tear me down or make me sad or upset or angry. I just really I am controlling what I am bringing into my mind, what I'm listening to. And that's really makes me balanced and aligned, which is what I've always wanted. I wanted to be consistent across the board with whatever situation you can have. I was such a flip-flopper that's what I wanted. I wanted steady. And that's not saying that something bad can't happen, but my reaction to it won't be all over the map. I will be thoughtful, consistent, considerate, kind in my speech and how I handle a situation. And that's what I crave. And I know that it's a lifelong process, but I have made tremendous, tremendous strides in that area. And that's what I'm so grateful for this program, because, you know, it really is a self-improvement program that's kind of got this guise of a weight loss, but that's what's happened. I've improved every area of my life. And yes, the weight has come off because I've done that.
Right.
That's what's happened.
Yeah. So I often say this is a self-development program with a side of awesome weight loss.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It is really about becoming the engine of your life instead of the caboose.
It is.
So, and when you do that, it's not just in one area. It is in every area. So
Every area.
What we're talking about today is you are the engine. You're running the show. Like Joanne said, it's you running your life instead of your life running you. And that does feel peaceful. It does feel there is a contentment there, and a confidence that comes from that, that, you know, filters into every area of your life. And so this was such a great topic. Thank you guys for coming, joining once again. And for everyone who is watching this either live or on the replay, if you are interested in the Plant Power Revolution, which is the program we're talking about, the program that I have been running now for over 10 years, then feel free to contact me or one of our coaches, and we are happy to talk to you about that. Gina says, great topic. Everyone have a nice weekend. Absolutely. And here in Ohio, we are finally supposed to be getting some sun. So I hope that's going to happen. I would love to see some sun. And so I hope that you are all going to have an amazing and happy weekend. And we will see you next week for Don't Take Things Personally, which is a huge, huge topic. I know for me that's the hardest one. So we're going to be talking about that next week. And we have a guest, Hugh from our group, who was going to talk about how this has changed her life, both in her health and weight loss and in her life as a whole. So that will be awesome too. So everybody have a great weekend.
All right.
Right? Bye.
Bye.